All that I need is in your word. My purpose, your plans are in your word. Yeah, yeah. All that I need is in your word. My purpose, your plans are in your word. So I will walk in your word, and I will live in your word. I'll move in your word, in your word. Whoa, whoa. So I will walk in your word, and I will live in your word. I'll move in your word, in your word. Wonderful morning to you and welcome. Welcome to Morning Express. Nadine Blair here. Jump onto YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, wherever. And let's go into the feature Power in the Word. Yeah, I will walk in your word. I will live in your word. I will move in your word. Jody Ann at TG, thank you so much for preparing this word. Let's hear what God has to say to us this morning. All that I need is to fix this. Hallelujah. Okay, so good morning, and how are you doing? I'm blessed to be able to come and share with you again in another episode of Power in the Word. And today we're diving into the manna from heaven, the story found in Exodus chapter 16. There's a lot to learn from this story, how we sometimes view God and how we sometimes tend to behave and think as human beings. For us to understand the lessons we can learn from this story, it's important to know exactly what happened. So let's take a look. All right. Over 2 months had passed since God had saved the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. I was just listening to something on that. And as they were traveling through the desert of sin, they began to grumble against Moses. It's like a continuation of studying the word, or it's something more, right? So they began to grumble against Moses and Aaron. Verse 3 says, the Israelites said to them, if only we had died. People, be careful of the words you speak. You hear what the Israelites were saying? If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. That's what they were saying. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. Let's stick a pin right there. God rescued these people, right? Remember, they were in slavery and going through all these things, right? And God rescues them from a land where they were living in harsh conditions. They were being abused. They didn't have freedom. Remember, they were building, making the what was needed to build all these temples and whatever pyramids. And so they would have the sand and the hay. And Pharaoh at one point said, no, that take life too easy. Just use the hay alone. And so he made it harder for them. So they were being pressured. They complained, right? They were being abused. And instead of being thankful, they went as far as to say that God should not have rescued them. So they weren't even remembering what they were going through. Not true, Ronique. Your words are your destiny. I soon come to that. Careful what you say. So it's almost like them have amnesia and forget all that they were going through. They were complaining. Does this attitude sound familiar? We oftentimes complain about situations instead of being thankful. If you know anything about the children of Israel, they constantly complained even when God showed them time and time again how faithful he was. We can be like that sometimes too. God has been so faithful in our individual lives. Think about it. Instead of grumbling and worrying, let's try and cultivate a spirit of thanksgiving and contentment. Complaining only stops us from trusting God and what He can do. Let's continue with the story. So, God heard the complaints of the Israelites and promised to rain down bread from heaven. However, He gave specific instructions about what the Israelites should do when He did. Each day, they were to go out and collect enough bread for that day. So if it's today, them should go out and collect enough bread. So if them collect bread, them probably would collect one for breakfast, one for lunch, one for dinner. Right? And who eat enough? One for supper. Enough for the day. That's all they were supposed to collect. And then on the sixth day, they were to gather enough for the sixth and the seventh day. So, like God promised, bread rained from heaven the next morning. Moses specifically told them not to save any of it until the next day, but some of them did. No, so some of we stay. We hear the rules, and then, no, so may I put it up, may I put it up. God said, no, may I put it up. The bread that they saved began to smell and gather maggots. That same bread, because God had given a instruction. For the following days, they followed God's instructions and gathered enough bread for each day and saved none. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much bread. Can you imagine getting bread from heaven? Bread from heaven. Moses instructed them to save whatever they had left from their portion until the next morning, since God would not send any bread. And despite that, some Israelites went out on the Sabbath to gather bread and they never find any. What can we learn from the actions of the Israelites? Anxiety, enough. Disobedience, plenty. They disobeyed God despite Him promising, oh Lord, help. Oh God. It's like in the devotional this morning. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. That's what God says to us. And sometimes He has to keep saying it because it's like we forget. Didn't I tell you that I will be there with you always? Didn't I tell you don't worry? Didn't I tell you don't fret? God forgive us. Jesus. The Israelites had no reason to doubt God, and yet they did. And just to demonstrate God's faithfulness and how He stood on His promises, what He promised, He didn't only provide bread for that period, but verse 35 tells us that the Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they reached the border of Canaan. Every morning, then get up, then get bread from heaven. And every morning you get up, you can still get spiritual bread from heaven. We have no reason to doubt God, and yet we do. Proverbs 3 and 5 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. This popular verse is a powerful one. The Israelites leaned on their own understanding. They leaned on what they remembered and what they thought to be right. That's what they were leaning on instead of leaning on God's infinite understanding, which is always right. Let's not be like the Israelites today. Let us have a thankful heart and learn to trust Him even in the hardest situations. Send me a text, write a message on WhatsApp or YouTube or Facebook and let me know how this devotional has blessed you or helped you. I want to go back to a point that, and I want to thank Jody and TJ again for preparing this, but I want to go back to a point and add this, that one of the first things that they said was, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. This is what came out of their mouth while they were in the desert. If only. There we sat with pots and everything, but you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. They spoke it into existence almost. Be careful of the words that you say. Be careful of the words that you speak. And earlier, If you were listening earlier, I was saying your words have power. So whether they're negative words or positive words, they have power. Do they have power over you? Like if somebody speaks something negative about you, do those words have power over you? This is why it's important every morning when you get up to reverse every curse and reverse every plan of the enemy and walk in the word. Walk in the word, live in the word, as the song is saying. I will walk in the word, I will live in the word, I will move in the word, in your word. Dwayne Tracy says, powerful words, I'm encouraged. Thank you. Good morning to you, Alvarine. Anyone else want to share anything? Yeah? Yes. Let me get this.
So I will walk in your word, and I will live in your word. I'll move in your word, in your word. Whoa, whoa. So I will walk in your word, and I will live in your word. I'll move in your word.
Maxine says, above all, taking on the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. That's it. That's it. That is it right there. Yeah, man, you quench all the darts of the enemy with the word. Thank you so much for keeping it locked on Love 101. We've got some more great music lined up for you. This has been Power in the Word. Have a blessed, beautiful rest of the day. Keep it locked on Love 101. Claudette says those words are powerful.
All that I need,
all that I need
is in your word.
Good morning, Auntie Nadine.
My purpose, your
That scripture I was processing some things and thinking, Lord, yesterday.
Oh Lord, it break up. All right, Hugh, good morning to you. Dorothy, good morning. We're going to pause right here and take care of some business. We'll be right back. Keep it locked on Love 101. Sometimes we speak in anger, but it does not matter. Every word has power. We have to be careful. Be careful of the words that you say. Be careful of the words that you say. You might end up cursing your own self, your own family, even the situation that you're in. You may put yourself back instead of going forward because of the words that you speak. So be careful of the words that you speak. Words have power. Have a great day. Keep it locked.
In your word. And this is what he told me. You say, have I not told you?